Tropical Storm Debby is inland and doing its transition to what will eventually be some sort of post-tropical system, but it really doesn't make a difference because the outcome is going to be the same. Heavy rain, severe weather, flash flooding up and down from the mid-Atlantic states to parts of the Northeast. We'll fill you in on all the who's, what's, and where's. And there is a low humidity, dry air mass lurking in the background, and it will be coming in right behind all this for the weekend. And speaking of wheeze, we've got Bill Goodman tonight from NWS Upton. And that's
Yay!
and that's tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, Bill, and you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Yes, the link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use that coupon code, Joe Rayo.
Summer 2024, Joe
And,
Chiaffi.
and if you do, you will get.
You'll get not 8, not 9, nor 5, nor 15, but you will get 10 big percent off anything that you purchase. So go ahead and use that coupon code and get your discount.
Indeed. And welcome to everybody on the chat board to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And for those of you lurking in the background, SPC, WPC, NHC, we know you're there.
Are you trolling me by saying that?
I would certainly not. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday. And we may be on tomorrow night, folks. Right, Joe Rayo?
Right.
Right. So we will be on tomorrow night at the 7:35. But if we're on tomorrow night, we won't be on Sunday this weekend. So just make a note of that. We'll be here tomorrow night, and we will be off on Sunday. So make sure you subscribe, turn your notifications on. If you like the show, hit the like button because we love it when we get to at least 100 likes, and Joe Rayo gets to ring the bells of Notre Dame when that happens. So, Bill Goodman. For those of you who don't know Bill Goodman, you ought to be ashamed of yourself because he's been on the show oh so many times, and he's with us again tonight. And we are always glad to have you, sir. And I think you pointed it out quite well. This is the GG and G show without Gigi.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the three grandpas. Yeah,
Three grandpas.
Three grandpas.
Exactly. With almost 140 years of weather experience between the three of us, and we still can't come to a conclusion. All right, so
I'm thinking back to when it all began for, I guess, all three of us, sometime in the late 70s or whatever, when it was like zero. And in fact, Joe, believe it or not, an auspicious anniversary for me today, because on this day in 1988, I did my very first fill-in for Norm DeVoskin on a Sunday afternoon at News 12 Long Island. It was my very first appearance on News 12, which eventually, 7 years later, led to a full-time position in Westchester. But my very first appearance on News 12 was on this day in 1988. What was that? 36 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Well,
congratulations.
Yeah. The passage of time, I sometimes I just can't come to grips with the fact that all these years have passed by. I just we all do it, and you all do it in terms of looking at it and thinking where did it go?
I don't know. I have no clue. Now, Bill, you've been at the National. How many years have you been at the National Weather Service?
I've been in Upton since 2003. I started at Mount Holly in 1999. So, been doing it for a while, and I guess my weather career goes back even a few years before that. Working at headquarters, doing IT type of stuff, not doing weather forecasting.
You should tell everybody that when you work for the National Weather Service, you are constantly on a swing shift. Is that correct?
Yeah, rotating shifts. Weather's a 24/7 business, and we Yeah, we have a crew that's on constantly, issuing forecasts, and yeah, it's can be pretty. That's a pretty. It's a grind sometimes. It's a grind. It's you have to be able to tolerate the change in the shifts and sleeping during the day when the whole rest of the world is
Midnights,
up. Oh yeah.
midnight shifts. Is it still
So
a 12? Is it still a 12 to 8 thing?
We got two. We got a 12 to 8. We have a 10 to 6. I start working those Friday night. I got the 10 to 6. I got a couple of those, and then I got the 12 to 8. I got a few following
So
that.
you got to
So
drive. You got to drive to work in whatever we're going to have tomorrow.
yeah, that's right.
So I guess we should just get going on what is going on, and first things first. Uh, Watching the whole evolution of um, of Debbie was to me was interesting from the fact that uh, the models were sort of playing it in reverse. You almost all the time it's the European that's way to the way to the left, and the GFS is way to the right. And this was one of those where the GFS was way to the left, and the European was way to the right, and the GFS was correct. Bill.
Yeah, that was yeah, a little surprising, and I really scratched my head at that because I couldn't, it's like the old biases didn't apply with this one. I don't think they applied with Beryl either, at least as far as the Euro goes.
Well, that I mean, there were so many unprecedented things that happened with regards to Beryl, uh, and I assume they're going to retire the name
we
Beryl, yeah, I guess. Wait, which one are they going to retire?
this year's Beryl.
I imagine so. And this is probably the first Debbie that's ever done anything. Usually, that Debbie storm is one that's from what I remember in the past has always been one that's just sort of petered along and not done much. So
Right.
do I have that right?
Yeah, and Beryl now, the thing that stood out uh, with Beryl was the fact that the other Beryl storm from a couple of years ago was that glorified severe thunderstorm that they made into a hurricane east of the islands. It was, I think, it was also, I think it might have also been a June system or an early July system. You remember that? I mean, you read on the advisory, gales extended out 15 miles from the center. Some really obscene, absurd thing. I mean, it was just so absurd.
and I mentioned this the other day is the fact that it used to be at one time, 20, 30, 40 years ago, to retire a name of a particular tropical system was unusual. It didn't really happen all that much. I mean, we remember Camille and other major storms, but in a typical hurricane season, you might get one retirement, maybe none. And now it seems to me like every year we seem to have more than a few that are retired. This certainly Beryl, I think, will be retired. And before this is over, we may actually see a push for Debbie to be retired because of all of the rain that she has dumped on Florida up through the Carolina coastline. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but once again, another prospective retirement coming up with this storm as well.
All right, well, we're off. I guess none of us know realize who's going to speak. So I will take charge here and bring up the
Okay.
radar right now. And one of the things, Bill, that struck me this afternoon was I don't think I've ever seen well, maybe the small states, excluding Rhode Island and Delaware and the smaller states, but uh, earlier today, probably around mid-afternoon, three-quarters of North Carolina was under a flash flood warning. Now, it's not the case now. There are still some flash flood warnings going on, and even a few tornado warnings. But there are a bunch now in southwestern Virginia, and actually for central and western Virginia, where they've had it's been really dry there all summer long. They've had, they have drought conditions there. This rain is actually going to be beneficial to them as long as it doesn't get too out of hand. But It was pretty extensive to see all those flash flood warnings up, covering virtually the state of North Carolina, which is not a small state, geographically.
Yeah, that's I can't recall anything like that happening in the Northeast, where say the whole state of New York would, or 2/3 of the state of New York would be under flash flood warnings. Maybe a lot of New Jersey. It seems like that happens on a. Seems like the whole state of New Jersey is in some kind of box, even with a small event.
Oh yeah. Now there's already precip and looks like some heavier downpours in central Jersey right now on the radar, also in southeast PA. And there are a couple of tornado warnings that are up just south and west of Washington D.C. Not by a short distance, but not by a long distance either. And I was wondering because they'll just jump around. I got SPC expanded and upgraded the their severe weather risk for tomorrow to a slight risk now for New Jersey, to about New York City, uh, eastern Pennsylvania, northeastern Maryland, and Delaware. And I'm curious as to what you think in terms of possible spin ups we could see from this tomorrow.
Yeah, from what I saw from the run 18Z her, that looked like a good call to me. I think things are going to get busy tomorrow afternoon and into the early evening.
Did you have the HRRR? Did you want to share it and talk about what you think is going to happen? Was that one of the graphics you're going to use?
Yeah, I was gonna show some graphics from the 18Z herd to kind of paint the picture for how things may play out tomorrow.
All right, well, go ahead. You want to do it now? Let's do it now.
All right, so let's see if see if we can share the screen.
Stand by, folks. There's some technology going on here.
All right, here we go. Let's see. So let me start with start with instability. It looks like by early afternoon, it's looking we have surface-based Cape of 1,000 to 1,500 across a good portion of New Jersey and in eastern Pennsylvania. So
Can you explain for everybody watching the show tonight what CAPE is?
okay, Cape's a measure of the instability. You need one of the ingredients for thunderstorm formation. You need moisture. We got plenty of that. We need lift, which is going to be I guess the remnants of Debby providing lift, lifting the air mass, and then you need instability. So you need some buoyancy. And when this cape is a measure of the buoyancy. If you lift something from near the surface, whether it's going to continue rising, so that's how you would build cumulonimbus clouds and thunderstorms. Those values, 1,000 to 1,500. That's actually pretty typical for severe weather events in the Northeast. Not like you would see in Oklahoma where the Cape be like 3,000 to 4,000, but it'll be enough. We'll get enough daytime heating where we get enough instability that we can start to see thunderstorms. It looks like things will get going probably first in eastern Pennsylvania, and then work their way eastward during the late afternoon and into the early evening.
And
So
of course,
let's see if
and of course, anytime you're dealing with tropical systems, even when they make their transition to become non-tropical or they get absorbed by a frontal trough, there's a certain amount of muscle memory in the atmosphere that's going on, and that's pretty much what we're going to be dealing with through much of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast with this.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of strong winds off the surface. You still have the even when the winds in a tropical storm or a hurricane spin down at the ground, they could still be going pretty well aloft, and thunderstorms will tap into that, and that's that where you can get where the storms actually start to rotate and can produce and bring some of those strong winds down to the surface, produce damaging winds, even tornadoes.
Joe, do you have a question?
No, I do want to point out that because the winds have been out of the east northeast and we've had such chilly temperatures. I mean, the temperatures today, once again, did not get out of the 60s here in the Hudson Valley. But because of the fact that we have the approach of Debby now, I believe then Bill just pointed out, of course, the gusty winds that we're anticipating, the winds are going to swing around into a southerly direction. So what I think is going to happen is we're going to see the temperatures kind of stabilize right where they are, 64, 65, 66, and may actually go up a few notches over the latter part of the night to maybe upper 60s to around 70 by daybreak tomorrow morning. And then with that southerly flow, and the winds could be gusting to 20, 30, even 40 miles an hour, we will probably see not only a noticeable increase in the humidity and dew point temperatures, but also in temperatures themselves. The ambient air temperatures, which have been stuck in the 60s, likely will approach to or even go above 80 by later tomorrow. And that muggy, humid air and the passage of Debby to our north and west will probably induce a heavier bevy of showers and storms. Although, as we've also been talking about, the fact that the tendency is for the heaviest rains to occur to the left or to the east of the storm track. Places in central New York, central Pennsylvania, upstate New York may very well be in line for 2, 4, maybe even in some isolated spots, 6 inches of rain. I think the general overall rain coverage for us will be on the order of about an inch or two. Of course, that also must take into account the possibility of convection. I noticed, Joe, that earlier today the Storm Prediction Center upgraded from marginal and placed a swath of slight chance of severe, which
Right.
encompasses the tri-state area for tomorrow.
There's also a 2 to 5% tornado risk.
Right. And of course, that would be generated by the fact that we're on the right side of the storm track. That's where the winds, the gustiest winds, usually are. And if we get into that slot of juicy, sticky, humid air, that certainly could set the stage for some noteworthy convection later tomorrow and into tomorrow night. So it looks like it's going to be a fun day tomorrow, and that's why we at Joe and Joe, we're going to be doing a show tomorrow night. We normally don't do one on Friday, but it looks like it's going to be a fairly active period when we go on the air tomorrow night at 7:35. Joe.
I've got the satellite loop up, Bill. There's not a lot of thunder, there's not a lot of lightning strikes going on, but oddly enough, there's actually because I've been in that I've been on the eastern edge, the western edge of the cloud cover here in North Georgia. Because if you look where North Carolina touches the Georgia border, and you go about 20 miles south of there, that's where I am. And we actually the last couple of days with everything that's been going on, it's all been to the east. Of course, our weather here has been really nice, deep blue sky, sunshine, uh, temperatures that topped out in the mid 80s. I really couldn't complain. But um, the signature on the satellite, I mean, it still has a really solid rotation here. But NHC, and they were right with this. Obviously, the system, when it was a tropical storm off the southeast coast, never really was able to form a solid core. And oftentimes when you get these storms that eventually run up the eastern seaboard inland, that core is very important, because if you get under it, you get clobbered. In this particular instance, doesn't seem to be much of a core, but there still will be ample rains that will occur from this.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you still have rain bands that are to the east of the center of circulation that are streaming on shore, picking up a lot of Atlantic moisture, so that most of the heavy rain is coming from those leftover bands and not from the core of the storm itself. That's basically where, and we're going to be on the eastern side of the storm, so we're going to see some of that as we get into the afternoon and evening hours tomorrow.
Well, just to go over, in terms of watches and warnings and advisories that are up, the flood watches are all inland, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and then it goes from northeastern New York through all of central New York, much of central Pennsylvania, basically east of I-81, or I-80, or including I-81. So I-81 I'm sorry, I-81 west of I-81, and then down through eastern West Virginia into Western Virginia, where the rain's already going on. We have a tornado watch up right now for Maryland and much of eastern Virginia and eastern North Carolina. Wind advisories. Yeah, I haven't really been paying too much attention to the wind here. It's going to be a southerly wind tomorrow, The gradient is not super tight, but I think tight enough that there will be some you know, wind gusts to maybe 30 or 40 miles an hour. So they hoisted the wind advisories up for eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Long Island. What's the deal with coastal flooding? I don't even know where we are in the moon phase at the moment.
We're
We yeah,
oh,
we sorry, Joe. We had a I think we had a was it a new moon on the 4th?
right. We had a new moon on the 4th, and it'll be at first quarter phase on Monday, the 12th. So we're halfway between an astronomically high tide situation and kind of a neap tide or neutral tide situation. So it's not really one of those scenarios where it looks like a horrendous tides. But anytime you get a gusty, strong southerly wind, that's an onshore wind for Long Island and for places near and along the Jersey coast. So that could lead to some localized flooding conditions, coastal flooding conditions.
All right,
Yeah, I
I'm
would
gonna
think so.
go ahead,
Some
Bill.
high
I'm sorry.
surf, some beach, maybe some minor beach erosion and along the ocean shores.
Yeah, here's the tornado watch that's up. It includes, by the way, DC. So it's for I'll bring it up on the screen so we can take a look at it. So it's fairly widespread. Eastern North Carolina, all of the eastern half of Virginia, just about of Maryland, except for the counties on the Delmarva Peninsula, and then the westernmost counties are not in it. It runs right up to about the Pennsylvania state line. And uh, here's the actual outline of all the counties with the box, and there's already some radar activity that's going on in there. Uh, yeah, I would guess, I would think that we'll probably wind up seeing a tornado watch at some point tomorrow.
Yeah, I would think so. Probably eastern Pennsylvania, a lot of New Jersey, maybe getting into the Hudson Valley. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how far east that threat's going to be. Whether that's actually going to get to the city or not. Only because the air mass is not quite as unstable as you go farther east, and it looks like the ingredients for severe weather, they look like they're going to be on the wane as we get into the late day, early evening.
WPC's got flash flooding risks, of course, and they've got a high risk running up through North Carolina into Virginia. The North Carolina part is certainly played out. The Virginia part is playing out now. Moderate risk that runs up into southwest Pennsylvania for the overnight. And then they start pushing the slight risk further north uh, to eastern and southeastern in Pennsylvania and then back through central PA. For tomorrow, a moderate risk from western Maryland, northeastern West Virginia, and then going northeast from there through central and parts of northeastern PA, and then through central New York into northeastern New York, all under a moderate risk. The slight risk running down from Vermont and New Hampshire, and then they kind of curl it across northern Connecticut and then bring it down into New Jersey, just west of New York City, going into southwest Jersey, down to Delaware, continuing it into Virginia and North Carolina. It's kind of tricky for tomorrow with respect to flash flooding because, on the one hand, when you do the smoothing, okay, of the rainfall forecast, and I've got WPC's map up here somewhere. Here we go. So when you do the smoothing, um, 1 to 2 inches is what they have. In fact, they have less than that for much of Long Island and for South. If you south of the Route One corridor in New Jersey, it's less than an inch. And then, of course, you start to jump into the 2 to 4 inch amounts in eastern Pennsylvania, and they've got these stripes of 4 to 6 in the central part of the state and down into western Virginia. But it's kind of tricky, Bill, right? Because you know I often use, when we're talking about storms in the summertime, whenever I see whatever WPC's forecasting in terms of rainfall amounts or whatever I think the rainfall amounts are going to be, I always I always put that little footnote out there, which means that if local areas you get under a thunderstorm that might be a bit on the robust side or maybe doesn't move very quickly and sits over you, or you get a cluster of storms that sits over one area for a longer period of time, it still could wind up with double the amounts that are forecast. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility that there's some, maybe some isolated flash flooding from rainfall tomorrow into tomorrow night.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the slight risk area does try to cover that, even though it looks like it. I guess as you were as you were mentioning, it doesn't quite get to New York City. That's we're really slicing the bologna thin there, because if any of those storms that come in, if they do just make it a little bit farther east, yeah, some areas even in the city, some isolated areas can end up seeing maybe 2, 3 inches of rain. It's a little bit hard to say. It's that At least the overall probability of that still looks like it's greater as you work your way farther west into New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, central New York.
By baloney, by the way, Boar's Head or Oscar
Oh,
Mayer, or I just curious. I'm a Boar's Head guy.
I don't know. Boar's Head's been taking it on the chin lately with I guess with that recall. So maybe we're gonna skip that for right now till they get that.
Boar's Head is very big down here in Georgia.
Had no idea.
Yeah, Boar's Head's just about, it's everywhere. I
I
was
should.
shocked.
I just wanted to get off the baloney for a moment and just say that for our viewers that tomorrow, I think the worst part of this is going to be from the afternoon into the first half of tomorrow night. Basically, what we're looking at from Debbie, again, Debbie is going to be passing off to our north and west, but she is going to be pulling probably some kind of a frontal line or a frontal system through. You could call it a dry line, because that's probably going to be where the line of much lower humidity, much lower dew point temperatures are going to be pushing eastward. And so, with that weather front coming in from the west, that is likely going to be generating quite a bit of convection. That's going to be the system that will probably lead to, if there are any, possible severe thunderstorms again late tomorrow or into the first half of tomorrow night. So, tomorrow, while you may have showers around in the morning and midday hours, they really won't be all that much to write home about, I think. But when we get into the latter part of the day, during the afternoon, I think it's probably when SPC is going to be raising all kinds of watches for eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and upstate New York. And part of it may encompass the Hudson Valley, maybe the New York City metropolitan area. We shall see. But that's when we're going to be uh, facing the worst of it. Will be again late in the day tomorrow and into the first half of tomorrow night, with a potential frontal passage of sorts, a cold front or a dry front, whatever you want to call it, induced by the passage of Debbie to our north and west.
Uh,
Now you can get back to your baloney if you
no,
want.
no, no. The other thing is, just to make this clear, uh, the I mean, I'm just judging off the GFS, which has the front on the coast at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, and convection ahead of it, which you can clearly see. By 1 a.m. from New York City west and northwest, it's long gone. It's still going on in eastern Long Island and southeast New England. And by 7 a.m., it's pretty much done for everybody. So that means that the weekend is going to be pretty much good from start to finish. And we are still, still looking for that, uh, all that dry air that's coming down, which I think is going to be most welcomed in what has been uh, an incredibly humid stretch over the last 4 weeks or so.
Yeah, I agree. When we'll be looking at dew points in the 50s and lower 60s for an extended period of time. That compared to what we've had, that'd be pleasant. Temperatures in the I guess temperatures reaching the lower and mid 80s for a lot of that time frame as we get into next week. That'll be a nice stretch of summer weather that we can look forward to.
The GFS, by the way, has 50s dew points pretty much all week, and even into next Saturday, for much of the Northeast. And more importantly for me is the fact that I've got those beautiful dew points arriving sometime Saturday afternoon and dropping down into the low 50s and even some upper 40 dew points here in North Georgia. So that's going to make for some really nice. I can actually maybe turn the AC off for the first time in, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months.
Wow.
You know,
I I hope you have the AC that goes on and off and not runs
oh
constantly.
yeah, no, of course it's on a thermostat. Thank you, Miss Blue Ocean, for hitting super chat tonight. It is most appreciated, and also for the kind words. We try to do our best, and we have fun doing it. That's the most important thing. All right, so I guess we pretty much said everything we could say about this for Debbie, and I'm just looking here. So I guess the Hurricane Center. Did they issue that was the 5 p.m. advisory the last one?
I don't know. I usually on my Facebook page I like to print the key messages, and tonight on the key message there was only one paragraph. So if they're
You're
not,
on your own.
I mean, if there's I didn't see any notice saying this is going to be
Yes,
the final.
future advisories will be issued by the Weather Prediction Center. So the last position was the 5 o'clock position, which was 35-1, 80.2, which is 45 miles east of Charlotte, North Carolina, or about 95 miles west southwest of Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. So there you go. Um, now, Mr. Goodman, are you with
Yep,
us, Mr. Goodman?
I am here.
Okay. So I'm sure it has not escaped anyone's notice um, that and it started the last couple of days, and now we're seeing it more and more, that the Atlantic is revving up to maybe getting another system going here in the tropical Atlantic and heading to the west northwest, and then the European and the GFS and the Icon all have it near or in the eastern Bahamas by the time we get to late next week. And I know you've messaged me and you've expressed your opinions on this, so I'm curious as to um, what what's running through that feverish little brain of yours, sir.
Yeah, I'm concerned about it. I think the East Coast really has to watch this one, but I wouldn't necessarily narrow it down to any particular section of the coast. I saw what the European this afternoon did. I guess the operational run that goes out to 240 hours, and it looks like it's setting up to come north. The control run I think brought it actually right across the control run of the ensemble, which is basically it goes past 240 hours, actually brought it up into New England.
Well, here's the
I
European run. I'm putting it up on the screen for everybody, in case anybody didn't see it. And this is the full Atlantic view. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. Complete. Go on with your thoughts.
Okay, yeah. So that the regular European model goes out to 240 hours, and then there's the ensemble that goes out to 360 hours, and there's what's called the control run of the ensemble. I guess that's just I guess it's pretty similar to the actual plain vanilla European model. It had the hurricane in about the same place, and then brought it. I guess this morning's run, the overnight run, brought it into North Carolina. This one's bringing it into New England. You know that far out, you can't really focus on any one path. Sometimes when I see stuff like that in the long term, I'm like, okay, the model's forecasting that 10 days out. Okay, that's not what's going to happen, but we really don't know.
Oh,
Uh,
and of course, there's always a ton of variability. By the way, I had the European model up. I just switched to the Icon, which on its 180 hour, there's three of them. One off the African coast, the one east of the Bahamas, and then one in between. So it does appear that the 180 hours val is next Thursday, a week from today, which is August 16th. So it does appear that um, after the lull that we had after late June, early July, with three storms in a week, and then we went into a lull period. things are definitely waking up here.
Yeah, I would say so. I guess the MJOs and getting into a favorable phase. That's not my area of expertise. I kind of rely on other folks talking about that and and pointing that out. So yeah, everything's coming. Looks like everything's coming together right now for the Atlantic to really wake up.
Joe, we have some super chat hits.
There's one super chat hit I don't know how to pronounce properly.
You mean Nicky Cupcake?
Uh, yeah, Nicky Nicky Cupcake.
You
Thank
pronounce
you,
it you pronounce it Nicky Cupcake.
thank you,
Cupcake.
thank you. And of course, we have
Uh,
Miss Blue Ocean, and we have the more recent one is Robert Lumnicki, who says, "Great job, Joe, and Bill."
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Robert Lomnicki. Thank you, Nicky Cupcake. And Miss Blue Ocean, we thank you uh, again. Yeah, uh, what are your, do you have that European control run that you could show?
Uh yeah, just here, give me a minute here. I'll have to pull it up from Weather Bell.
Yeah, by all
Let's
means, take your time.
all
We
right,
got all
then I'll
day.
share then I'll
You
share
don't,
the screen once I have it. All right, the famous control run. I can remember in wintertime someone posting long range snowfall from the control run, and
you mean the
the
52-inch snowfall in Boston?
yeah,
Something like that.
there's been a few of those over the years. It's so you have to take this with a complete grain of salt. All right, almost ready here. Okay, let's get it to 240 hours
By the
and then
way,
go from
we have 90 likes so far. Thank you for those of you who hit the like button. Of course, we just love it when we go over 100 likes. So if you like the show and you haven't hit the like button already, hit the like button. Okay, I'm sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
All right, so here we go. Okay, all right, I'll show. Let me share my screen here. And okay. Oh, wait. Let's see. Okay, is that working?
Yes, it is. That's beautiful. You did it perfectly.
Okay. I finally, after all these years, I finally figured it out. So here's the control run of the European ensemble. That position at 240 hours is pretty much the same spot as as the European model. And the problem with the situation, even never mind where the actual hurricane might go. If we just look at the big picture, we're looking at a trough that's going to develop over the eastern U.S. And we're also going to have the subtropical ridge in the Atlantic expanding westward as this system gets going. And that's where I guess that's really where the problem lies, is that that's going to give it an opportunity to maybe impact land if if the ridging out over the Atlantic is strong enough. And also, if the trough doesn't become so strong that actually, I'd seen in the Canadian model where it was closing off over the Atlantic and actually forcing the storm to remain out at sea. So this is by no means ground in stone. But for entertainment purposes, let's take a look at what the control run of the European does from this point. Okay, just have to let's see if I can animate this.
I'll just tell you, I'm just looking at the icon here, and the icon, I guess, is like the Canadian because it's trying to cut off something in the Gulf of Maine, and it would probably suggest that, yeah, it would recurve uh, uh, right along 70 West. So that's the icon.
Okay, and actually the European AI model was recurving the storm too. So it seemed to be on the same page with the upper trough being too strong. But
But
That
the
European that European AI European AI model has been around now for about 6 months. I still haven't gotten a feel for it. I still haven't had a chance to really, get a good handle as to exactly how to work with it. It's sometimes it's way off the wall compared to the regular European or the GFS. So I don't know what you want to do with it, but that's my opinion on the AI model.
By the way, the GFS, I'm looking at this. I'm just going to switch. I'm just going to, I can put my screen up without affecting yours. So just hang in there for a second, Bill.
okay, no
Um,
problem.
the GFS at 18Z, um, it drops let me count them. one, two, three, four contour cutoff in southern Kentucky and Tennessee, and it takes the tropical system and turns it northward along 70, and then eventually, and then it just kind of gets kicked out because of the way the cutoff is and how it sort of drops southwestward, and the cutoff doesn't quite capture the the storm, or if it does, it's not far enough west. But I mean, you look at the 500 and you look at the cutoff here, the way it is, and then who knows if that's even right, but that's a concerning upper air. Whereas, the European drops a cutoff in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And if it holds that trough there, right, you probably would envision something that could get close to eastern North Carolina and then turn northeast and maybe make a run for Cape Cod if that was the case. Again, we're just kind of talking in theory here, folks. You know, we
Yeah. Now, do I have the screen?
I'll bring your screen back,
Okay.
and there well, you had something up there. It's not there anymore. Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry.
Okay.
That was my fault.
Yeah. So to that end, speaking of the European, when you go into the extended range, does actually do something like that, where it brings it north and then uh, brings it into New England, and that's because of the trough. Now, one thing that the models are notorious for also doing is underplaying the strength of the subtropical ridge. When I see the GFS bringing something up along 70 west, I'm already thinking it's going to be west of that.
Well, you have to, because the ridge 9 times out of 10 is winds up being stronger than what's advertised in the long term.
And that's certainly what happened with Debby. The European had Debby as an Atlantic storm, and then it ended up in the Eastern Gulf. It was a good shift of 7-8 degrees longitude.
And the models initially were trying to kick Debby out, but the westerlies never dropped far enough south. The ridge in the Atlantic wound up being too strong. So, that's something I think we're going to need to bear in mind when we're approaching whatever we're going to be dealing with, as far as trying to figure out what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. If the ridge got really strong, the storm could end up going into the southeast. If the trough ends up being really strong, like the Canadian, I guess the icon we're looking at a storm that recurves. It's let's put it this way: it's in the interesting phase. We're not to the fascinating phase, as you would put it, Joe.
Right. No, it's not fascinating yet. You have to be within 5 days to be fascinating. Of course, we're fascinating here, Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. On the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And Mr. Rayo, I think it's time for you to ring the bells of Notre Dame.
Yes, I saw that a few minutes ago. On my counter, it says 102. We may even have more than that now.
By the
So
way, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
thank you again. This is, I think, the third consecutive night that we've gone over 100. It's amazing what a tropical system will do. We've not been able to do this very much at all over the summertime, and now we've strung together three consecutive shows where we've had over 100 likes, and we thank you very much for that.
Oh, and it's the guest that is causing everybody to just smash the like button. How can you not?
Well,
How can you
listen,
not
this
smash them?
guest came out of the woodwork because of the tropics too. I was laying low all summer.
Anybody on the chat board have any questions? Just post your question up there, and we'll pass it along to Bill. Um, Slight change of subject, sort of. That just popped into my head. Are they going to get rid of the NAM or not?
I don't think so. I think there is enough pushback that's not going to happen.
Really? This is the second time that they tried to get rid of the NAM, and they're not. I have to honestly tell you, I don't look at it as much as I used to, mainly because it just got so squirrely.
It was even squirrely with Debby. The last, I think one of the runs that we were looking at had a wave developing to the south, and it would have kept Long Island in southern Connecticut in rain for a good deal of Saturday. And we looked at that and thought, nah, that's not going to happen.
NK, you're going to have to go after the show is done. You're going to have to go back and watch the video, because Bill just went through the whole thing about what the European uh, was doing with all of this. So it's when we're done, just roll back. Uh, I'll go in about 40 minutes into the show, 35 to 40 minutes into the show, and you'll get it. You'll get it. Chuck Cardillo, one of our daily regulars here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, um, wants to know your thoughts about La Nina. Is it ever going to develop? All the hoopla about La Nina, and it's still not there.
What do we have? A La Nina watch right now. It looks like it's forecast to develop in time for winter, and that could be interesting.
Well, um, maybe, maybe not, depending. Yeah, is it going to be a repeat performance of the last two or the
Yeah,
last several?
I don't know. I don't know. Things don't work the way they used to. El Nino didn't work the way we expected it. The Siberian snowfall doesn't work the way we used to
No.
that it used to. All these things that we kind of came to rely upon, they're really struggling. As far as like good long range forecast tools. So, I mean, the one interesting thing that I saw about La Nina, I think it was forecast to be like somewhere in that half a degree to a degree Celsius above normal. It seemed like a lot of our good snowstorms happened when the La Nina was not strong, when it was just like sort of weak to moderate in that range. But that's not the only. I mean, that's only one piece of the puzzle. It just is an interesting one to. I haven't even thought about winter. That's
No, neither have I. But the winter forecasts are already out there. So, Pat BFD wants to know. I don't know. You may not know the answer to this, but the storm that hit Trumbull, Connecticut Saturday night, was that a? Do you know if that was a microburst or a tornado?
It looked like a microburst. A lot of the severe damage was between, I think, Trumbull and Easton. That's to the north of, I guess, the center of town. And I worked the radar that day. It's funny. I saw radar signatures. I had been thinking about that time from time to time. Maybe I should issue a tornado warning. Maybe I shouldn't. I decided against it because it looked like it looked like a straight line wind type event, and anything on the radar that looked like rotation, I think that was just the updraft and the downdraft of the storm were just so close to each other and so strong that it didn't really look like a tornadic circulation on radar. Yeah, I'm pretty confident that it was a straight line wind damage. I mean,
Dennis,
if someone sends me a picture of a tornado in Trumbull that day, of course I'll change my mind. That's
Uh,
Dennis, Dennis Cassia, by the way, also had quite a bit of activity in Monroe, Connecticut, which I guess was not too far away from Trumbull. So it was not a very pleasant time last Saturday to be in that part of Connecticut with all of that activity going on.
Frank R wants to know the rest of hurricane season. Is it going to live up to the seasonal forecast, do you think,
uh,
of lots and lots of named storms?
good question. I don't know. It's funny that about a month ago I had been looking at the super long range European, and it had the signal for not for Debby and also for this Atlantic system. And then it kind of quieted things down, which I thought was kind of strange. I didn't really buy that. So I mean, from the usual forecast tools that I look at for later in the season, I didn't have a good feel, but that I could go back. I could go back now that we're in a favorable phase of the MJO, and the Atlantic really is starting to light up. The longer range models may start to key in on that, and they may change their tune. So I think we just got to wait and see. I think it's going to be active.
Rich Rothmansky wants to know what happened to the MM5 from Stony Brook. It's been a long time
Oh,
since I even looked at it. I can't remember the last time I looked at that model.
I don't know, but they do have I think they run a version of I think they run a version of the GFS and the NAM that's very high resolution that you can see. I think they abandoned the MM5 in favor of that, and That was actually the NAM based version. Their high resolution NAM was actually pretty good as far as summertime convection.
Warbrick on the chat board, Joe. We have a new person, Warbrick. Um, hit the tip jar. Thank you, Warbrick, for hitting super chat. David Scott, Bill would like to know wave heights on the South Shore for Saturday, with the front having cleared the coast.
Ooh, for Saturday, I think there might still be some 5 footers out there on Saturday, but they should be coming down. I think the highest waves are going to be Friday night, and maybe just some stuff lingering to Saturday. Take a look at our coastal waters forecast.
Right.
Weather.gov/NYC. That's my answer.
Shameless. Shameless, Bill. Um, Now the next question is actually could turn out to be quite comical. Why is the Jason Fox would like to know why is Joe stand by for this one? Why is the general population ignorant of past weather disasters, like how the governor of New York or the mayor will claim such and never that they've never happened before, yet they did. We've never had storms like this before. Uh,
I will tell you that this is the honest to God truth, Joe. I got a phone call a couple of days ago from Lisa Reyes, who I used to work with at News
well,
12.
I remember her.
And I guess she's back working at News 12 because she was doing a story on the storms, and she was calling to ask if I could verify were we going to get hit as hard or as badly as what Governor Hochul was suggesting. Now, I had not seen the Governor Hochul news conference. I don't know what she was suggesting or forecasting. She just wanted to know what I thought. And I told her, I said, well, we'll probably get, in general, an inch or two with the cold front. I had to explain to her, I said, this is a two-part system. The second part would be the remnants of Debby, which would come our way on Friday. So I said, overall, most areas, when it's all over said and done, may pick up like 4 or 5 inches of rain, but it's going to come in 2 different steps. And after I spoke with her, I flicked on one of the local channels. I think it was Channel 7 Eyewitness News. And I saw a part of that news conference. And Governor Hochul, I don't know if you saw this, Bill, Governor Hochul said we could see rain coming down as much as 3 inches per hour. And when she said that, immediately I said, now I know why Lisa Reyes called me to find out or to verify if that was going to be possible. I said, 3 inches of rain per hour? I said, what did she think? That we're going to have a repeat of Ida from, a few years ago? That's crazy. I mean, I know that there was some place like Fordham picked up 4.5 inches, but they didn't get all 4.5 inches in 1 hour or an hour and a half.
Even if they did, it's clearly happened before, and it's happened in cases where we didn't even have tropical storms running around. You're never going to
Yeah,
outside of a ball gag. It's impossible to get politicians to shut up, but they're not going to do that.
yeah. Little knowledge can be a dangerous thing sometimes.
Yeah.
I think we have short memories too. These things have happened. Even what happened with Ida, it's probably that something like that happened in New York City, but it was probably about 100 years ago. Similar rainfall amounts in September. So it was
Well,
surprising to see that, but it just never happened in our lifetime.
you remember the one on Long Island that we got? What was it, in 2013?
Hmm.
With that upper trough that came through, it was the end of July or the beginning of August, and Islip, I think, still has the 24-hour rainfall record from this with the whole state.
Yeah, I think it's about
Remember
13
that?
and a half inches.
Yeah, and I remember after it was over, trying to get to the Southern State Parkway because I had to go buy flies because I was going fly fishing, um, and it was all covered in mud. You couldn't get on the parkway because all the roads were, the mud was like 6 inches deep. I've never seen anything quite like it. Yeah, I mean, this stuff happens from time to time. It happens. There's nothing new here. There's nothing new here. But
No, and
they'll tell us otherwise.
from where we sit, having a big picture view, we see 1 in 500 year events every year. They're just happening in different places each year.
Right. Of course. Exactly. By the way, Charles Montaloni reporting that there's a confirmed tornado that touched down near Marshallton, Delaware. So that's some of that stuff that's coming up, and they're in the tornado watch zone. That's up at the moment.
Yeah,
I'm trying.
but just want to get back to what Bill was talking about. I just called up on my computer a Facebook post I did in 2021 regarding the weather forecast in general that was made in advance of Ida. And the thing that really ruffled my feathers was Mayor Bill de Blasio in the Daily News
Oh,
suggested that Ida made a mockery. That was a quote, made a mockery of the weather forecast that suggested that New York would get between 3 and 6 inches of rain. And I said, I'd like to point out to Mr. de Blasio that in 152 years of weather records that have been kept for New York City, only 8 times has 5 inches or more of rain fallen in a single day at Central Park. So even to remotely suggest that as much as 6 inches might fall in one sitting is rather unusual. I do believe that in advance of Ida, there were flood advisories, flood warnings, and we were talking about 3 to 6 inches of rain. I
phone
mean,
calls were made.
uh,
My
and now
understanding was that phone calls were made before the storm by, I'm not going to say who. I, my lips are sealed, but that phone calls were made to key people to let them know what was about to happen. But of course, this is coming from someone who was, um, calling the forecasters a mockery, coming from a man who was a mockery of a mayor for New York City. But did I say that? Oh,
I don't know. Did you?
maybe. I'm hearing voices taking over my body.
The, the, the,
So,
problem, the problem is, I said at the end of this long dissertation, I said, here's the problem. The problem is that we live in a city or we live in an area where the infrastructure is over 100 years old. And while we did not see as frequent these major rainstorms back in the day, we're seeing them more frequently now. And the infrastructure that was developed over a century ago simply cannot take 5, 6 inches in one sitting, and that's why we get flooding, and that's why we get illegal apartments with the basement apartments flooding out, and people complaining about that or whatever. Our infrastructure was simply not built to handle these very anomalous scenarios. They don't happen, thankfully, too often, but when they have happened in the past, and the heaviest one-day rainfall in New York City dates back not to 20 or 30 years ago, but back in 1882. They have happened in the past, and then they will certainly happen in the future. So, in many ways, what made Ida a mockery, Mayor de Blasio, was our infrastructure, not the forecast. Please don't take the pot shot, and they always do. The governor of New Jersey, the mayor of New York, the governor of New York State, they all point to the forecasters, both the private sector and to folks like Bill, the National Weather Service, and say, well, the forecast busted. That's the reason why. It's not that. The forecasts are pretty much on target now. The technology allows us to see major or anomalous events like Ida and whatever comes our way. The problem is we live in a place where the infrastructure is outdated, and so invest a few million or a few $billion. I don't know how much it's going to cost. Invest in getting better sewer systems, drainage systems, better highways. And as I finished out, I said, sometimes we do indeed take it on the chin. Sometimes we're not right. And we do take it on the chin with those occasions. But definitely, Ida and other events where we've called for major rain amounts was not one of those times.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I would like to place Joe Rayo's name in nomination for the President of the United States. We we accept it. We reject it. Uh, Jason Fox, you bring up the governor of Maine in a well-known situation. As I, the, he was taken. She was. There was a response to what she said, and she got pretty much taken out to the woodshed by NWS. Because you guys, the forecast was spot on. They just chose not to, They just chose not to listen to it. I just,
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Bill. Go ahead.
it's rough. We take it on the chin from that. We got to fight people with Sharpies. It's a rough world out there.
Yeah, it is. And
But
I
at the same time, I think it's also a testament to that we when we do forecast the weather as well as we do, people have that expectation that we're always going to get it right. I mean, that's we can look at it from that perspective. That's that there's that kind of
you know
trust
what?
in what we do.
I'm gonna take a little issue with that. Um, and I don't even think it's a question of whether whether they think we're supposed to always get it right. I think that people just don't listen. I think they don't pay attention. They hear what they want to hear. Okay, they cherry pick whatever they hear, and then of course it gets churned through the gossip mill. So that by the time it gets to it gets down to the end, the forecast that somebody is sputtering out of their mouths that they thought they heard is nothing compared to what the reality was. There's a communication problem here. And it's not from our end because the folk. I mean, when we're here with what we do on the show, I mean, when you take, in a sense, we take people by the hand through an event as a process and show them what and how things are going to happen. Obviously, not everybody wants to participate in that enlightening discussion, even though I think it should be mandatory, but that's just me. But I don't think it's a communication problem on our end. It's just a public that doesn't know how to consume weather information properly. It's social media, which takes everything to its natural Armageddon conclusion in order to get clicks. Uh, so it's a war we've been fighting, and we've been fighting since once we all got into this career, and it hasn't changed in 40 some odd years. At least I don't think it has.
Well, I mean, we're getting better at that too. I mean, we're not if we think we're just scientists that we just forecast the weather and throw that information out there and let everyone do what they will with it. I mean, I think it's our job to get the message right so that people understand it and we'll take the right type of action.
Well, I think 99.9% of the time we do get the message right. And the people who pay attention, the people who are genuinely interested in weather, I think will attest to that fact. But it's for everybody else, it's a very it's difficult for us. But you know what? I just don't let it bother me anymore. I haven't let it bother me for a long, long time because as you just said it yourself about memory spans being short. People forget. They just forget. They go on to the next one and the next one and the next one after that. So yeah, it all gets forgotten. I think maybe we're the ones who are, because we're always the one, we're the ones that get sprayed with it after it's over so we remember, and it's our job to remember, but most people don't.
Yeah, that's just have to. Yeah, you have to just take it in stride. Last time I got upset about something like that was the I guess the 2015 when blizzard when we thought 2 feet of snow was going to fall in New York City, and it happened in Nassau County and Suffolk. We were
Of
that
course.
close.
Oh, that one. You talk about the half blizzard,
Yeah, I guess New
the
York City
famous
only
half,
got what?
like 11 or 12. And
Yeah,
then on
something
the other
like that.
side, and on the other side of the George Washington Bridge, there was nothing. So I mean, it was so tight; it was literally a mile from nothing to a foot. And of course, those were the glory years on Long Island, right, Bill?
Oh
For
yeah,
snow
yeah,
lovers.
yeah. Where did they go?
How many 20-inch plus snows did we have from 2000 to 2020?
Oh my goodness, it seemed like almost every year you
Every
could count
year,
on one storm being
and
at least a foot and a half. Yeah.
some years two and even three. I just remember, the thing that always stands out to me was, I guess, um, in those winters. you could just sit back and just put out a forecast. It got to where in a couple of those winters where it was routine to throw out numbers like 18 to 24 and 24 to 30. It just was, you didn't even think twice. Oh, you looked, okay, this is what's at another 18 to 24, 24 to 30. And they all
Oh,
pretty much, and they all pretty much verified. I don't think I remember, I don't think a single one, I don't think there was a single bust in that whole stretch.
yeah, and I even joke about that one particular storm because almost a year later to the date, the city did get its highest storm, the highest storm total snowfall ever. So I said the European was right. It was just a year off. That's all.
And we saw Joe and I saw this in our final years as broadcasters at the last broadcast outlet that we worked at. I mean, every day at 3 o'clock, we had to go and deliver a forecast at the editorial meeting. And I remember as clear as day, one day I step in there and I'm talking and I'm saying, we've got a severe weather situation coming up in the next few hours, thunderstorms, possible hail, downpours, damaging winds, maybe even a flipping of a tornado or two. I go through the whole 9 yards here. And the news director, the person who is in charge of all of this, just looked up and said, "Thank you, Joe. Let's move on. What's the story on crime?" And that seemed to be more interest to her than what I had just delivered. And like an hour and a half later, Joe and I are outside, along with half the newsroom. Um, I don't know why so many people were outside. Joe, was it because the alarm went off or whatever?
Yeah.
Uh, and 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 it's pouring rain. The winds are blowing, thunder and lightning, and we're doing like a live cast on Facebook. Come back inside, and the same news director who was like half asleep when I delivered the information about how severe the situation was going to be, screaming at the top of her lungs at me and Addison Green. Addison was there saying that, "Why didn't anybody tell us about this? Why didn't anybody? We should be doing a live right now." And all I could do was just like roll my eyes. And I, having been in the business already by that time, 40 plus years on radio and television, I had known enough just to keep my mouth shut instead of staring in and going at her, And Addison's looking at me like, "What are we going to do now? What are we going to calm down, calm down. Let her blow off her
Let her
anger.
roll.
Let her roll." But in a way, that's a microcosm, I guess, of how the government works. When you put out or try to prep people in advance of a major weather event, yeah, okay, we'll get around to it. When it happens, oh, the weather forecasters, they were the ones that were wrong. I wasn't informed about this. So, there you go. It's the human nature of things to, not believe or not listen or try not to listen to what may come your way.
Yeah, and it's hard to forecast extreme weather. I mean, there have been times I even look at what the data is showing and sit there and say, do I really want to go with this? It's hard. It can be hard sometimes to avoid being a weather weenie about things and do wish casting, and at the same time, it's just as hard to predict an extreme event when everything points to it.
And, Sandy now is 12 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And social media in 2012 and social media in here in 2024 are two different things. It's evolved into a much different type of monster. Actually, Joe and I brought this up with Joe last night. Um, and I was thinking about 1955 with Connie and Diane going into North Carolina 4 days apart. I just wonder, and maybe we'll find out soon enough. I just wonder what's going to happen because we really haven't had a real threat in the last. I mean, I don't think I can't remember one. We haven't really had a real threat of a hurricane in the last 10 or 12 years. So when one does finally come along, it's gonna be very interesting to see what what's gonna go on with regards to So like I said, social media and everything else. Um,
Well,
I,
and
I,
there's also the talk about this Project 2025 and how it is saying that they want to privatize the weather forecast to get rid of NOAA and the National Weather Service.
that you want to go. You know how far back that whole privatization argument has been going on, and I can remember them talking about that back in the '80s when Ronald Reagan was president. So I mean, it's never going to happen.
Hmm.
None of that stuff is going to. Bill's going to have a job. Bill's going to get his pension,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, I'm counting on it. I mean, the thing is, there's federal law, the Organic Act that goes back to the 1800s that
Wait,
basically,
wait, hold on. It's called the Organic Act.
yes, the Organic Act of whatever year. I think that just, I don't
There's
know. It's probably some kind
there's
of
nothing more
all-encompassing bill.
organic than an organic act. But go on.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, it I think it was part of how the Weather Bureau got formed back then, and I mean, part of that is that we're not allowed to degrade our service in any way. So, I mean, to dismantle the National Weather Service in this way would violate federal law. It's not gonna happen. But what I do worry about is that you have these bills that are all full of pork, and that somewhere in one of these bills is going to be something that somebody sneaks in that does something that nobody likes, and I couldn't even
Like in
tell
other
you what
words,
that might be.
so it's like the Bill Goodman Coronation Act.
Right? That's not going to happen.
Well, we think you're a king here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. If it, and we may crown you from time to time too.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, call me out if you think I'm full of it. By all means,
No,
that's
you know, no, that's never going to happen. We'll do it behind your back. We won't do it
okay.
on there. All right, you know what? It's coming up on 8:45, and this sad little body is screaming to take a shower and just kind of watch a little TV and go to bed. So thank you for being here tonight. And
Oh,
we love you. We love having you on. We love And by the way, congrats on the second grandbaby.
oh, thank you. Yeah, it's I've only seen him a little bit. My 2-year-old granddaughter is she gets right in there and like, you know, who's this baby? That's
Yeah.
she and I we have our thing established, and she's not gonna let go of that. That's so I'm gonna have to make room for him.
Oh, by the
It's
way,
gonna be interesting.
I got to show you something. Hold on. So I got. So I was my friends at the dog park, as you may know this, every day in the morning. JJ, who by the way sleeps through every single show, doesn't move. He's laying down there, right by the side of the bed. Not him, but my friends Denny and Julie. They have a Patterdale, okay, which is like um, if you look them up, it kind of looks like a dachshund, but it's a little bit bigger and more muscular. And part of the dog's character is that the Patterdales think they're badasses. Okay, they will challenge a German Shepherd. They will challenge Great Danes. They have no fear at all. So anyway, we were sitting on the bench. I was sitting on the bench there and having a conversation, and suddenly, I feel like wetness on my leg because Cooper came and peed on my leg, on my socks. So my daughter is getting married in November, my youngest daughter, and I'm in the process of getting a new suit. And now I'm going to connect the two stories. But my friends Denny and Julie came back from a road trip yesterday, and they bought me a pair of of socks from Bucky's. So I am going to be wearing these Bucky's socks underneath my suit for my daughter's wedding, but I will not be wearing my Bucky's bathing suit.
That's great. I tell
And
you, I wish I had worn the gold lame suit at my daughter's wedding this spring. That's one of my regrets in life.
gold lame?
Oh yeah,
You have a gold lame suit?
no, I was threatening to wear it, and it wasn't going over too well. So I just had
Oh,
to get with the program.
yeah. No, you would have. You would not be sitting here right now doing this show had you. You know, you you might have been coming out of intensive care by now.
Yeah, something along those lines. I think I made the better choice.
Joe, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to express before we say goodnight?
I see we've gotten up to 136 likes, and we want to thank everybody for that. And the super chat hits that came in tonight, too. And we will be here tomorrow to cover whatever Debbie's remnants are doing to us in terms of showers and potentially nasty thunderstorms if they do crop up. We'll see.
And the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use that coupon code, Joe Rayo.
Summer 2024.
And if you do, you will get
10 big percent off.
And
And
if
an
you
autograph,
don't, and if you don't, you won't get.
and an autographed picture of Bill Goodman, too.
All right, Bill. We'll see you soon. You can come back anytime, and if we do wind up with some sort of tropical threat down the road, we'll try and grab you on and bring you on again.
Yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to be back sooner
Ne-
rather than later.
Always welcome, Bill.
Next week at this time,
Uh, maybe let's
it's
see how it
possible.
all unfolds.
All right, we'll do that. And just a reminder, we'll be here tomorrow night. We're going to be on tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. to cover whatever it is we're going to be getting. And maybe we'll be coming on at the point that we're almost done with it. So we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night. Night, night.
Nighty night, folks.